Tabor. We're going to be talking through tonight's Friday Monster MLB slate. We used to call the little slates, the sheet slates, the low scoring ones. We used to call the big ones my slates.
Let's do it.
To be honest, I've crushed the smaller slates and I've done just about okay on the bigger slates this year. I'd say I actually down probably a little bit. So I want to turn that around tonight. It's a really big one. I'm also heading to. I've got there's a weekend wedding that I'm going to be at all weekend. So I have to leave after about 7 Eastern time. So hopefully there's not a whole lot of late scratches or things like that, because I do plan on playing the slate pretty good. I get excited when I see the slates this size, but it is going to be a tough one. Sheets, any overall thoughts and how are things going?
First of all, we got major equity tonight in the NBA because right now my $50 bet on the Knicks to win 12,000 or whatever it is, to win 1,200. It was up to like 365, before the Heat series started, and then it was down to like 2 cents. Now it's at $66. So right now, like my 50 is worth 66, but this is the leverage spot. Obviously, if they lose tonight, they're out, so it's worth 0. But if they win, and then they get a game 7 at home, like this thing could be up there. Now, not that I'm ever freaking cashing this thing out quite yet. But this is obviously a huge game for the Knicks.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you also got the last night was my one. I mean, I didn't bet that much. I bet $100 at 16-1 on Philadelphia early in the year. But it's like they would have been just barely a little bit of an underdog to Denver, and they both would have been like 1.5 to 1 if they would have won that game last night. Now I think they're kind of in trouble, but. Anyway, yeah, it should be a fun night, and then my Lakers against Golden State in a series that I have no idea how the Lakers are up 3-2.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm watching every game, and I'm watching one team get wide open looks, and everything is peaceful and easy, and like looks like they got everything organized. The Lakers are just sort of like trying to bully inside, and shots look bad. LeBron looks bad, and yet somehow they're up 3-2. So basketball sometimes just doesn't make sense. Anyway, on to baseball. Do you have any overall thoughts on this slate before we?
Yeah, I was asking you a couple of days ago if anything's really changed in DFS in general. I mean, do you remember? I mean, you have 2 pitchers over 12K. That's not. I think during the last couple of years they weren't doing this. You know what I mean? Like they had like 11K as kind of like the top of what these guys were, and so it's making it difficult. But I don't know. I think difficult is good, So
yeah,
that's the first thing I looked at. I looked at this, a billion options on this slate. I already as far as hitting goes, I have 9. I have like 10 teams that I can play, and then pitching. I mean, we got a bunch, so we'll just go game by game.
Yeah, let's do it. Well. It's just there's so many ways to go here that I'm trying to figure out. And by the way, we'll touch on FanDuel a little later when we do live, probably, because it sometimes takes a little while to get through these ones.
Yeah.
Well, first up, we have one of those 12K, the aforementioned 12K pitchers, and the difference is like when we're paying like.
Wait, I'm going to stop you. Because I have Baltimore, Pittsburgh first.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot that there's all the 405 games. All right, but I will say I have to just say really quickly my overall the 12K thing. Or the really expensive overprice, like when we're paying like 10-7 for Framber Valdez, and it's everybody else in the slate looks like they're going to get like about 15 or 20 points, but it's a little different than when you have guys who can get 35.
That's right.
All right. Anyway, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, in Baltimore, and I'm just double checking the weather here. Looks like really good hitting weather, 82 degrees with a little wind blowing out. Well, right off the bat, I know that people like this Oviedo as a pitcher, but I am personally going to be, Baltimore is one of the stacks I'm looking at, and Bradish is one of the pitchers I'm considering. That's my long and short of this. That's my short answer of this one.
People like Oviedo as a pitcher, but the guy can't get anybody out. So I don't know I don't know what that's all about.
There were some people who just he was hyped before about him as a prospect.
No, I know, and then he had a really good outing in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, and then and he's gotten blasted recently. And so Baltimore was actually the 10th team. They will show up in the projections, but I'm going to have to try this. I mean, Baltimore is a really good hitting team. They're at home against the guy who's struggling. So for me, I think Baltimore is definitely in play. And I think Bradish at 6,600, it's one of, a long a long list of SP2s that you can play.
Mhm.
But he's definitely in there. So I agree. I guess I agree. I like Baltimore and I like British.
Yep. And moving along, we've got now you got Tampa Bay, New York, right?
Yep.
So okay, so this is again I like playing Cole better when he's out of division. He does tend to struggle more against division opponents, but a lot of that's due to the Red Sox just pummeling him for some reason, especially in Boston. In this one, I am definitely he's obviously on my list. I don't know where I'm going to end up with in terms of ownership because I do think he has the highest ceiling. And I also am on the hey, I'm not terrified of even though Tampa's an awesome team, I'm definitely not ever afraid of taking pitchers against them. I also think that it is a bullpen game and it's not ideal for the situation, but the fact that once Judge gets back in there, that you put a lefty against this lineup, especially with Harrison Bader, the greatest player of all time in your lineup.
Yeah.
It feels like you should always have some Yankee exposure. So I have the Yankees on my list. Again, I'll highlight what I like at the end of the day, but as of right now, I'm just going to be talking about sort of first look type stuff. But I have Cole and I have the Yankees. I think Baltimore I like a little better than the Yankees, and I don't necessarily know if I like the Yankees full stack, but maybe like a Judge, Bader, I don't know, Torres or LeMahieu or Volpe, like maybe a 3-man or something like that. I could get behind it, but I'm not like extremely excited about it.
So I have Cole as pretty much the same as Strider. That's what I pretty much have. I mean, they're both. I'm projecting similarly. I do have Cole as right now being owned more, but I actually think that both those guys are going to be reasonably owned. We'll get to why later, but I think that 12K might spook people, and I think there's really good upside options right below these guys. Maybe even not right below these guys. We'll get there, but I like Cole. I mean, he just he can mow down Tampa people. He can definitely do that. They could also get to him sometimes. But listen, Cole's definitely a prime option. I didn't quite get to the Yankees as far as the hitting goes. It's interesting. So I'll take another look at that. But for now, Cole, obviously one of the top ticket type plays, and I think you will get him at reasonable ownership.
Yeah, and I want to point out that if you want more in-depth stuff and everybody who's going to break down every kind of number for every game, watch Goldie's videos. That guy is awesome, and it's really, really good information. And a lot of people have come in to say it as well.
You got to invest the time, though. I'm telling you, you got to carve out the time to do it. But if you're willing to carve out the time to do it, it's definitely a lot of into the weeds stuff that I know a lot of people appreciate.
Absolutely. All right, why don't you start off the New York Washington game?
So I have 10 teams that I'm interested in as far as hitting goes. And one of them is the Mets. And the Mets I have is probably the lowest owned or one of the lower owned options of all of them. So I figured I would just throw that out there. I did not, and I like playing Mackenzie Gore. Just don't think this is the matchup to do it. So I'm not getting to him today. I guess he might end up being one of those guys you're always supposed to play some of, but I just don't have him today. But I do have the Mets as kind of one of my sneakier leverages. Not even say leverage. It's not like Gore's going to be particularly popular, but just as kind of maybe a team that might be somewhat ignored. I don't know. So I do like the Mets as one of my 10 stacks, and that's pretty much all I got from this. Wait, do I have McGill? No, I don't have McGill either. So no pitching and the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, the Mets have been arguably definitely the most disappointing team in baseball. They've been the worst team in baseball over the last whatever number of games. I can't imagine this is going to last forever. That's all I can say. I'm a little confused. Am I missing something with McGill as why he's not even like showing up as a reasonable play?
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't really know I'm just going to take a quick look here and see if I maybe because I do feel like this is like something that makes sense, and I understand about him being stretched out is probably the issue. But let me just see really quick if I'm missing something. I think that's the issue. 96. I guess he's been bad, but and Washington does make contact, but I have McGill on my list, and I like the idea of the Mets thing. I'm a little it's a little stadium upgrade for them. 84 degrees, nice hitting weather, a little wind blowing out. I just have been so it's just been so bad what we've seen from them this year.
Yeah, that's true.
But it does feel like a spot where we should be like, I mean, even against Gore, like if Gore gets a little walk happy, you've got a bunch of guys who have historically crushed lefties on the Mets. You've got a patient team against it just feels like a spot where they could explode. I could see the Gore argument too. Yeah. But it's one of those where if he has that 3 or 4 walk game, you might see like a huge number in the first few innings with the power the Mets have. So Mets are on the list. I have them a little behind Baltimore and even the Yankees a little bit, but I may end up changing my mind and having them as a full stack a little later.
And I'll tell you, maybe it's all these Mets pitchers because you weren't here yesterday. So yesterday was a freaking like a 1-game slate in the afternoon, maybe like a 3-game slate, and there was the Senga from the Mets against like the Reds. And I was looking, and I was doing the video. I was talking to people on there. I'm like, they said, well, I guess Senga. I'm like, I honestly have Senga as like not even playable. And they're like, how? I'm like, I have no idea. I actually went into the projection to try to figure out what was going on. He was like 10K projected for like 11 fantasy points against the freaking Reds, and I'm like, I don't know. And I'm challenged sometimes whether I just ignore it or whatever. I'm like, screw it. I just didn't play him. And then I don't know whether it was the baseball gods rewarding people, but the Reds got like 5 runs in the first inning or something against Senga. I don't even know. So maybe the Mets pitchers are just all trash and we just don't know it. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to speculate as to why McGill is.
But actually, didn't Senga have a good game though yesterday?
I don't know. I know he gave 5 runs in the first inning. I don't know.
I know they lost, but I just remember seeing something about it. All right, so this is probably the most interesting spot on the slate to me. I think there's I might play a good number of lineups tonight, and I guess I'm just gonna have some Strider exposure because I could argue this guy's the best pitcher in baseball, or at least best fantasy pitcher.
Right.
What I would say that's concerning a little bit about him is you look at a game where he has no walks against Baltimore, 10 strikeouts, only pitched 5 innings, only pitched to 19 batters, 10 of them struck out, and he still threw 95 pitches, and he threw 107 the start before in 5 innings. I am starting to worry that, I think if he wants to be a really great pitcher, he's going to have to start, for the long run, you have to start pitching to a little more contact. You can't try to strike everybody out. On top of it, I don't like this matchup for anybody. And I think that it potentially I don't want to say expose him. He's awesome, but I'm not playing any Blue Jays. I just don't think that this is a good enough spot to really make Strider especially viable. I don't see him and Cole as close. I understand that they're both different. Toronto doesn't strike out that much, and the lineup is completely loaded. They'll have a good approach. Strider still may go out there and just have a dazzling game. They haven't seen him before, which makes him a little more playable. But I've sort of gone back and forth with what I want to do here, and I think my decision is probably going to be fading Strider, or at least being well under the field on him. And oddly enough, I actually think that a get weird play that I can get behind is Chris Bassett. No one's going to play him against Atlanta. See, Atlanta's different because while they have an incredible offense, it's not like everybody on their team is crazy patient. There are plenty of strikeouts in that lineup. And I think that Bassett at 8.2 at home is an interesting, if there was maybe if it was a smaller slate, he would make more sense. But I think he's in play. At the same time, I could make the total counter argument that Atlanta's an interesting stack that no one's going to play today because it's a decent pitcher and there's plenty of options. So I think both those things are viable. Is this the right slate for it? Probably not. Probably this game turns into a stay away. But I think those things are at least worth mentioning because I did consider both sides of that today.
I'm going to probably end up fading Strider as well, for no reason really. I mean, except that there's just other options I can play. I mean, he's certainly rates as a good play. Other times though, he's been kind of a huge standout on the slate. It's just different. When you have a guy like that on a slate where the next highest guy is going to get 4 strikeouts, it's just different. He's got at 12-2 on this slate, you've got to compete with some guys, that have upside. And Toronto, listen, they can strike out like any team can strike out, but I mean, Toronto's good, man. And, it's and I'll tell you something else. I think I kind of even want to play. I think I want to play some Toronto here. You know, like I don't.
Oh,
The guy throws at 100, and Toronto is very amenable to balls disappearing. You know what I mean? Like I don't
yeah.
know. I kind of wouldn't mind playing a little bit of Toronto if I get to them. If I get to them naturally, I'm totally doing it. I'm not going to like force them in. I don't really have them as rating that great, but if I get to them as kind of like some weird Saber Sim anti-Strider leverage, whatever, I'll have no problem with that. I mean, I could totally see first inning 3-0 on 3 solo home runs. 100% see that. So, I
Hey,
will. That's kind of where I'm at. I didn't quite get to Bassett, but that's pretty much where I am.
interesting. I tell you what, if you do that, you're going to be alone, and that's not. Yeah, I don't mind that. Logan Allen and Tyler Anderson.
Wait, wrong game.
Oh, this is a problem. I'm sorry. I'm just going through the Saber Sim. I don't understand why the sites can't just do it at the same times that they do on the sites that we're playing on. It just seems like it's the same. You can use the same API, but whatever. All right, St. Louis, Boston. Why don't you start it off?
Yeah, I think there could be 20 runs in this game. And yet it's a weird thing. It's like two guys with tricks, but like two guys that might be washed. You know, it's an interesting dilemma here in a stadium that can punish the latter if that's the case. So I don't know about this one, man. When I first looked at this like earlier, before I even looked at projection or anything like that, I'm like, okay, this Paxton dude has been threatening to do something for a while or whatever, like years it seems. And then you got this Wainwright who's always manages to like just flex when you think he's done. I don't know. I think this game can deliver. So St. Louis is one of the top stacks I have overall. I don't know. I mean, I imagine they'll be popular, but I definitely like St. Louis, and what a tremendous team this season to be playing in general. But I like St. Louis, and I think I like Boston too. I don't know. I think this game can. I think this game could be 15-10. You know, if you get the right variation. I don't know. That's my initial take on this game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this is going to be the chalk, or I guess one of the chalk spots.
Yeah.
It'll be the second. I think the second most popular. I actually think both sides will get some ownership, but St. Louis is going to be way more owned.
I guess.
I'm in. Like they both make sense to me. I'm totally good with it because there's a Coors game on the slate, so I'm not worried about the ownership inflating to an unreasonable amount. And I would gamble against Paxton in a bullpen I still don't believe in. I also, there's a little worry with Wainwright that he's a pretty decent pitcher, but the Red Sox at home are still just a really good hitting team at home. And you've got a lot of different ways you could stack them that are interesting. I could see the full game stack. On top of it, it's 80 degrees. We've been playing games in like 49-degree weather in Boston with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in. It's 80 degrees and the wind's blowing out at 8 miles an hour to right field. This seems like a good game to attack. So I'm with you, Sheets. I'm definitely going to be on it. No interest in either pitcher. All right. What do you got next?
Angels, Cleveland. Now you can talk about Logan Allen and Tyler Anderson.
I don't know what I want to do here. I'm struggling a little bit with the Logan Allen part of it. My guess is I'll end up with a little bit of exposure. I don't feel great about it. I'd like it. I'd feel really good about it at 6,800. And will Tyler Anderson just show that he's actually a better pitcher? Maybe. It's a weird matchup. Cleveland doesn't have a guy like you look at the lineup, and this is not a bad lineup for a lefty to face. But Tyler Anderson has been, uninspiring, but he's starting to look better, and he's 5,500, which is good enough for me. So I probably am going to play a little bit of. I have both these pitchers as somewhat interesting, and not really getting to the hitting at these prices and situation all that much. Maybe depending on Cleveland's lineup, they might have some cheap pieces I'll use. So I might walk that back. But I think both Allen and Anderson are kind of interesting.
Yeah, usually when we go through baseball, we usually come to the conclusion that, well, one of us is going to win, the other one's going to lose, because we usually end up on different stuff. But so far today, we're kind of in lockstep a little bit.
Nice.
Even right down to the subtleties, because I kind of feel the same way about both Allen and Tyler Anderson, in that I think that there's a world where they're both playable, and I think that the reality is neither one is a particular priority, but if you get to them, I no issues, and I can't quite get to any of the hitting. So I mean, in the end, I don't think I'm going to have Tyler Anderson in a 555 or 777 or Logan Allen maybe for that matter. But I might get to them in say 20 max stuff, or even like the bat, what I call the battery or something like that. I guess that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I hear you. I didn't know what to say on it because I don't know. All right. So next up, do you have the White Sox? Or
no, the next one.
They have everyone exactly wrong so far. Like the odds are they don't accidentally get it right.
Well, the next one I have the most popular pitcher on the slate.
Okay? Yeah, easily.
Yeah. So this is what the deal is. So you have Cole and Strider at 12K, and then you have Burns at 3K less at home against Kansas City. So he's going to project really, really well. He's going to project as the best play. He's also going to project at 40% plus ownership, maybe more in the bigger buy-ins. And it's a big slate, so you got to be careful with that. And it's not as if Burns is delivered.
No, it's good for the most part.
So this is one of those guys where I'm probably not going to play him because of the chalk. If we played him before, and every time we played him, he's been like kind of a low-owned pivot off of guys like this. Right. Now he's the chalk. So I'd love to be able to just play Cole and Strider together. Yeah, that's just too much money. But in a weird way, I kind of want to almost play Cole and no Burns. Or do something completely different. We'll let listen. There are even more pitchers we can play later. But Burns looks like the best play. I have Milwaukee kind of hanging on as a decent 10th or 9th stack as well. So like Milwaukee, I like Burns, and nothing in Kansas City.
Yeah, I do think Burns, it makes sense to me why he's somewhat chalky right here. What doesn't make sense to me is just how much perception is ridiculous. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so ridiculous that a couple weeks ago, or even like 1 or 2 starts ago, people are just, oh, there's no way he's washed, and now we're all good, like everybody's going to play him. You know what I mean? And it's not like he pitched particularly well or poorly in those games. Like
he's got no starts with 95 pitches.
I think he had the one with 97, but or at least I thought he did, but maybe I could be wrong.
No, I just
maybe I'm wrong. But no, yeah, you're right. That's a little, and it is concerning a little bit, but I think a lot of that stuff usually is situational, more so than we give it credit for. And I think that, other than the one where he could have had the complete game shutout, that was the one time where maybe it proves against my point, but I'm going to have some Burns, and I do think what I would do though is maybe you avoid Cole Burns pairings unless you are going off the board, but you don't need, it's a big slate, so I don't think you need to go that crazy with that. I have to say though, what you mentioned about Strider before, the only way I'm playing Strider is if I'm playing him with Cole. I don't have any interest in just betting on him being that much better at it than everybody else at that price. If I'm doing that, I'm trying to get 70 points out of my pitchers, and I can find cheap stuff to go with it. In baseball, you can always find cheap stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like Milwaukee. It's going to be a little bit of a bullpen game. It is at least what I'm expecting, and maybe I think that this is a bad bullpen, but I don't like stacking against bullpen games on giant slates. So I may end up not going full stacks, but they're certainly going to offer some pieces. I want to point out guys like Brousseau, Luke Voigt that look good. Owen Miller, those 3 guys might be in for like 1 or 2 at bats. So if you play Milwaukee, just keep in mind you legitimately might be getting 1 or 2 at bats from 3 of the top hitters in the lineup. I think it's very important. So I'm going Milwaukee, more of a mini for me.
So you kind of touched on the weather early. There's really no big weather concerns. We'll get to Colorado in a minute. We get to Chicago, Minnesota right now, and I'm going to put it to you this way. So on Sonny Gray's best day, and let's say that Sonny Gray had his best day, and Cole and Strider had their best days, and Burns had their best days, Gray would not be worth playing. Okay, but if Gray has a good game, And these other three, don't just kind of have medium games. Gray could be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate with very little problems. So I think that he is a really, really good tournament play tonight at 10K. The other thing is that I don't know if anybody has in them to do it, but the leader of the free world, Drew Smiley at 9,100. He's going to be like 1% owned, and I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to play, you don't want to pay up, and then you don't want to pay Burns at 40%. Maybe you hope that the weather just somehow cooperates and you get the baseball gods keep this whole game low. But I think the Sunday Gray is totally a great tournament play. And Smiley, I don't think I could do it, but the Gray I definitely can. So Gray, and I'm not getting into any of the hitting.
So I'm going to bet you that Gray by the end of the day is the second highest or third highest. He's going to be in the top three in terms of. I think he's going to be extremely popular.
Yeah, maybe.
People watch game logs a little bit. Well, doesn't. And I disagree with one thing. I don't think on his best. If they all have their best days, I think Sonny Gray is right there with him. He can put up 40s. Like maybe not as high as them, but like he can put up a 40.
Yeah, maybe I'm already seeing 15% ownership on Gray. Yeah, you're probably right.
I think it's gonna. It might spike because this is the worst hitting weather we've come across yet. 69 degrees, 12-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from center.
Okay.
The Cubs strike out a lot. They have a good offense that strikes out a lot. Basically, they've been a tough offense. I'm not getting to any hitting in this game. If the weather was like really good hitting weather, I would definitely think about a Minnesota stack. But I'm probably just going to be off of the hitting, and I do like Gray. He's one of the guys I've got as my guys right now. But I don't love these prices. And do I think that Bradish and McGill or Anderson or what while you're embracing some more variance, can you get there with your 30 fantasy? Oh, Percy just missed an easy one. God. All right. Anyway, so I'm just interested in Gray basically from this game. Smiley can always put up a great game anywhere.
Right.
All right. What are we doing here, Sheets?
What, Houston, Chicago?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I jumped ahead again.
We're literally never going to get a single one right.
Well, it's bizarre because the odds are that at least occasionally you'd actually
by accident they're being in the right order, right? I mean,
it's just wait, Houston. I missed that 5-10 game. That's why I went right past. That's actually not. That one's on me. All right, go ahead, Sheets. Sorry, you started off 10.
I like Houston. They're one of my better stacks today. I don't know what the weather particularly is like in Chicago, but I'm just getting to Houston, and I'm not getting to any Chicago, and I'm not getting to any of the pitching.
Yeah, so as I touched on, unfortunately, in his last before actually it was couple starts ago against Minnesota, I was all over Minnesota, and I just said, there was a time where I was very high on Kopech, and a lot of things look like he's really regressing. I think that's probably fairly accurate. This is 61 degrees with winds blowing in 8 miles an hour from left field. No interest in the hitting. Kind of an ugly weather. Not an especially large number of interest in the hitting. I don't think I'm doing anything in this game, to be honest. And there's like some rain concern also. Just this is the one game that has a little bit of rain concern. It'll probably play, but it looks like bad hitting weather. So probably just worth noting that. I can't. I guess Houston and Chicago you could argue for, but I'm just not playing there.
All right, so let the record reflect, just so we're going to keep it real, right? That there's a game in Colorado and Kyle Freeland is not pitching.
Yeah.
I suggested
Kyle Freeland Light is pitching.
I suggested that Kyle Freeland pitched every game that we analyzed and in Colorado, and I now see that there is another pitcher that pitches in Colorado. Here's what might keep ownership low, if this helps, is that there is wind blowing in. I don't know if that's going to help that much. The other thing, if you want, what's that?
It's also cold.
Yep. And the other thing is that the pricing on Philly is, I guess it's kind of reasonable. It's not like these guys are super cheap. I happen to like Philly today. I don't see their ownership just kind of like dwarfing these other teams. You know what I mean? So you got to keep an eye on that. And if I could play Philly in Colorado at not huge chalk, I'm going to do it. I just have to again, this is like early ownership projections that I'm that I'm getting here. Listen, I wouldn't play Burns with Phillies, so I probably have to do something else. But I don't think Philly's going to be that wildly popular. So listen, part of it is because it's a 100-game slate. So I do like Philly, and that's I guess that's where I'm at. I like Philly. I'm not getting to Colorado.
Is it really possible that this game doesn't get oh, I don't understand. Is it just the pricing that people can't get to with the pitching? And that must be it, right?
I guess.
But okay, so one, I'm on the side of when people chalk stacks against Gomber. I just don't mess around with it. The guy is really, really good at not just getting pummeled.
Okay.
He gets pummeled sometimes. Everybody in Colorado does, but for the most part, doesn't get absolutely pummeled in his day-to-day starts. So Philadelphia is a sort of a different beast. There's a lot of good hitting on that team, especially with Harper back in. I don't mind the lefties, but in Gomber's defense, kind of nice to have two of the better three hitters in the top three of the lineup that are both lefties. So I don't know what I'm yet doing. I'll tell you one thing. No one is playing the Rockies today. I think that's the really low-owned stack that I'm kind of interested in. I've sort of reversed. You can see I'm reversing on some of my Taiwan Walker takes. Whatever happened to him, he can't seem to keep the ball in the park. And now the weather is far less than ideal, but it is Coors. I mean, it's 14-mile-an-hour winds from center and 57 degrees. But I think that this is another one of those the Boston, St. Louis, and this game stack makes sense. But partly why I like this game stack is if it really stays low owned, I'm in. I'm just completely in. I know better. I know what happens in these games in Coors, even the ugly weather games. When they're unowned, I think that you go after it.
Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean, this is why Philly's not going to be huge. I mean, even if you just put in one of the top guys, even if you just put in Burns, let's say you put in Burns and even a cheapo. Let's say you put in Burns and want to play Logan Allen just for hell of it. It's hard. I mean, I play these Philly guys. I'm paying up for the Philly guys, and now I'm 2,200 a man. So it's not that it's easy to play the Philly guys.
Yeah. I think that on FanDuel it'll be a lot easier to play these guys. So I think they'll probably be. Okay. My guess is Philly's much more popular over there, just as an initial guess. All right, you want to start off the next one?
Yeah. So I have definite interest in Texas as far as a hitting option here, and I have to say that I guess I have a little interest in Martin Perez also. Not, I can't be that thrilled about it, but I think he's definitely reasonable, and that's pretty much it. So Texas hitting, definitely one of my top 10 stacks, and Perez is one of those, whatever. I actually, now that you mention it, just because he's 6K, I have Waldichuk as an okay point per dollar play also. Again, it just depends on where you want to pay up for all these Philly guys, because you are going to have to spend down at some degree at pitching. So Waldichuk, probably a point per dollar play I won't play. Perez, maybe a point per dollar play I might play. And Texas is our hitters I probably will play.
Yeah, Texas has been pretty good to us this year, I feel like. Waldichuk has surprisingly not been hit as hard as you might think. You know what I mean? And I know that doesn't sound like much, but he's sort of mows his way to the 6 innings and just gets through enough, just gets enough outs barely to squeak by, and he'll give up a home run or two and put up 12 fantasy points or something. It just feels like we've seen a lot of that. The A's have by far the actual early season numbers for their bullpen they're record breaking pace. They're the worst ever. They're so bad. So if you get to Waldichuk, you get to face that bullpen. I always say that if it's under 60 in Oakland and the wind's blowing in, I'm just not touching the hitting almost no matter what. It's over 60 and the wind's blowing out, 65 and the wind's blowing out only 6 miles an hour, but that's just enough for me to have Texas as one of my top stacks. So I'm in on Texas, and I'm okay with the Perez idea. I guess I got to reconsider that because he wasn't on my original list, but maybe he should have been. So I'll take another look at Perez.
Yeah. So this last game. This is how I end up. This is how I end up losing 100,000 maybe. because what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up like playing some funky stuff that all gets there or whatever, and I'll be in great shape, and all I'll need is like a reasonable game from Blake Snell, and this will be the game where the Dodgers get him for 5 runs in the first. After like 11 walks or something like that.
Yeah, but I don't think we can complain if it happens, right? It's one of those no complainers.
Oh, what? Absolutely not.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's
right.
going to happen. So I'm probably going to end up being a sucker and doing it. But we'll see. I mean, do I want to play Snell at 8,100 or do I want to play Logan Allen at 78? I honestly don't know the answer. But if I'm going to get down to this range, I mean, those are kind of interesting decisions. Perez, Logan Allen, or Snell. Snell's got upside, but he's got, -4 in him also. So at that price, definitely something that I have to consider. And that's pretty much all I have there. You can talk to me about Dustin May if you want, but I'm not getting into any of the hitting.
Yeah, I'm not going to play Dustin May in this matchup. I still believe in him he's like, it's kind of weird though. Like he just put up 27 against these guys. We have Blake Snell, what is the last time? Has Blake Snell put up like a game yet? Did I miss that? Maybe I missed one that he's been okay a couple times. Just kind of interesting. Dustin May has been significantly better it is kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a mind bender. So, okay, I've talked about this Blake Snell versus the Dodger thing a number of times before. The thing he's got is he's got an incredible strikeout rate against them, and he also has like almost a 16% walk rate. This is a recipe for disaster at some point. It's going to come back to haunt him. I think it's probably a mini stack, but I like the idea of a Dodgers mini stack, and I like the idea of a little bit of Snell for those exact reasons. If you play the Dodgers, like you have some cheap options. This kid Vargas is really good. I think he's really, and he's coming along. Oddly enough, he hasn't done most of his damage off of left. Actually, he did. These numbers are wrong. I'm looking at the wrong numbers because I saw him hit home runs off of lefties. Anyway, I do think that there's the JD Martinez was not one of these Dodgers that Blake Snell used to dominate. Mookie Betts was not one of the guys they used to dominate. Freddie Freeman was not one of the guys he used to dominate. So add those 3 guys to any team, and you basically have a playoff team or a really good team. I just think that they're definitely in play. I like the mini stack. I don't think the full stack I'm going to get to because San Diego's bullpen is really good.
We were doing really, really well, and with me correcting on the different orders now, and I screwed up the last one. So it wasn't even the last game. We missed one.
Oh, we missed one. I know it threw me off a little bit for a second, but
yeah, San Francisco, Arizona. Well, I mean, fortunately, I don't really have interest in the pitching over there, but unfortunately, I have interest in San Francisco. I don't know why they're showing up as a decent play, according to my stack stuff, and I got this one of my 10 options. I have them rated okay, both value wise and points wise. I don't know exactly what's going on over there, and can't imagine anybody's playing them. So I guess that's good news. So I do like San Francisco from that game.
Yeah, I actually think that right now they're like, they're almost as owned as more owned than Philadelphia.
All right. So they are showing up as they must be really cheap or something, right?
They are really cheap, but also and they've got the new kid in there, Schmidt. But the Arizona roof is open tonight. For those of you guys who don't know that's kind of a big deal. And Arizona has the problem is they have like 14 good players. So you tend to get a lot of guys getting platooned for. That's what worries me a little bit about playing the Giants. But I do have the Giants as a legitimately good stack tonight. Okay. And I don't really want to stack against a bullpen-ish game. And I actually think Stripling is pretty good. I don't know how they're doing it. I want to know who's for sure pitching. Right now, I don't trust that either of these guys are really pitching bullpen game. I don't really know what's happening. So once I know who the pitcher is for the Giants, I'll analyze that one a little bit later because I have no idea who's actually pitching. And I do think that Arizona just at home against, especially Brebbia, I would definitely take shots against. But if they really use, if they're, then it would be a bullpen game. I don't even understand how they're going to use him as an opener. Why is he 8.4K? Like he's a relief pitch. I don't really understand anything in this game, anything about this situation. I don't think Brevia's pitched more than an inning this year. They're really going to use him for the one inning start. I just don't. I don't know what the Giants are doing, so I got to double check this one a little later. And look, you can pick on Stripling enough, but I actually still think that he's just not as bad a pitcher maybe as people think, or maybe I'm living in the past too much, and maybe we should be stacking up Arizona. But I do think this game, one thing we look at this time of year is game environments, and you have Arizona with the roof open, which seems nice. Great hitting weather in Boston, that seems nice. Colorado, Philadelphia game, that's Colorado, so that seems nice. That's sort of where I think the slate is like starts for me. So I actually have like those 3 games targeted out. Then the stacks that I like separate, and in those I prefer Boston. I prefer St. Louis over Boston, but you get much lower ownership on Boston. I prefer Philadelphia over Colorado, but much lower ownership on Colorado. I prefer the Giants to Arizona, but much lower ownership on Arizona. And then I like Baltimore and I like Texas as full stacks. I like Milwaukee and the Dodgers as mini stacks. And I'm open to both New York teams.
So I'll rattle off the 10 teams again. Then I'll rank them again by reverse kind of ownership. So Philly, Houston, Mets, Boston, Baltimore, San Francisco, Texas, St. Louis, Washington, Milwaukee. So it looks as though the lowest own of that crew is probably, I don't know why Baltimore is like no owned right now. I don't know exactly what that's all about. That's got to be, it just has to be higher.
Yeah.
I guess Milwaukee. The other thing is, like, I'm seeing you brought this up. I mean, Colorado, no one's playing them.
It's weird that no one is too, because like Taijuan Walker has given up like 7 home runs in his last 3 starts. Like I don't really understand it.
St. Louis looks like they're going to be really popular. Maybe the Mets. So lower Mets, Milwaukee. They'll play Boston. They'll play Baltimore. Maybe Washington. I don't know. So for me, Mets, Milwaukee, Houston. Okay, those are the 3 teams that I guess are the low end of the 10 that I like. But I do have a bunch of teams, and I'm probably going to play a bunch of them.
Yeah, and I'll harness mine in a little bit later once I go through some builds and all that stuff, and I'll post those for the premium members. I will post them and get that up. I also will talk a little NBA when we do go live later. And it should be a fun day. Knock it down. Oh, come on. Sorry. Needed Hoagie to make a birdie there. All right. Anyway, good doing a show again, Sheets, and we're both there for live as of right now.
We'll be there for live, and again, depending on the timing, maybe we'll be getting your Min Woo Lee cut sweat at the end. I don't know when he's going to play.
Unfortunately, I still need Pearson Cootie to get there after he was looking like it
was okay.
I was in trouble.
My cut sweat is going to be I'm pretty sure is going to be Aaron Wise.
He started 3 under today. Was he started yet?
He did not start yet.
Okay.
So he's T62 heading into, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I think it ends at 4 for what it's worth. I think it's going to shift the other way as the day goes on.
We'll just see. The only reason I mentioned is because I have a decent lineup, but he's the one that's teetering. So we will see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck, everybody.